Hey, welcome to Redacted Nuisance. I'm Dr. J, use they as a pronoun, and this is a random 15 minutes of completely single train of thought, unedited, lo-fi production values podcast that will go out about once a week. They are about 15 minutes long because that's about as long as my brain can hold a single thought for at the moment. Yay! They could become longer as I get more sane. Today, or in this one, I'm going to read something that I wrote to Wes Streeting in December of 2024, and it's all about the blocking of, or the banning of puberty blockers for trans youth. So I'm going to try to read this. It's from my phone. I will attempt to put a link up to this, but I wanted to make sure that this one got out there. So the subject is banning puberty blockers for trans youth. Oh, for those who don't know, Wes Streeting, at the point of time of recording this, is the health minister for the UK, who runs the NHS or is in charge of the NHS. He is a gay man. He has decided to ban puberty blockers for trans youth. Not for cis youth, for trans youth. So if you're trans identified and need puberty blockers, no. If you're cis identified and need puberty blockers, it's okay. I'll write it. I explain a little bit more in the letter, but we'll go through. Dear Mr. Wes Streeting, as a trans and non-binary identified person who is slightly older than yourself and has survived some 40 plus years of suicide attempts and suicidal ideations, I would ask you to reconsider your ban on puberty blockers. I didn't know for many years what I was. As in the 80s when I was going through puberty, there was no discussion about gender identities other than cis. I grew up in a country where it was illegal to be gay until I was 16. I spent my teenage years coming into a sexuality that was talked about in pejorative terms, and so like most, I went deep into a closet of denial. I know you are aware of the mental health pain and challenges that causes, as you spoke about it when you put in this ban. What I was dealing with on top of that pain around sexuality was a puberty that didn't feel congruous with who I am, and being forced by my biology and society into a gender that didn't fit with who I am. Unlike the trans youth of today, I didn't have the language to express those thoughts about my gender, and I just closeted this deeply. I was born too early to be part of the medical miracle that is delaying puberty in these circumstances. The pressure of this double closeting was intense. Everyone could sense I was different, and I was bullied relentlessly at school and church. I tried more than once to kill myself, and it is only due to a real resilient piece of me that I survived that. I have complex PTSD from the bullying and the resulting suicide attempts and suicidal ideations, which impacts on how well I can function as an adult in society. I am hypervigilant, reactive to triggers, and struggled for many years to be employed. Being here is exhausting. I am a lucky one. I know how rare it is for someone to make it through these pressures, as so many of my peers, my friends, my lovers have killed themselves either directly or through drug and alcohol abuse. I know you are aware of the impact of AIDS on the gay community. This is the same. I look at photos taken since 2005 when I arrived in the UK, and I see fewer and fewer people who made it through to 2024. We now live in a much different society, and a child like myself born today will be able to think more about their sexuality and their gender. As Noam Chomsky theorizes, you cannot have the thoughts without the words. The information is there for the younger people like me to build an understanding of who they are. That some of them will be forced by your actions to undergo the pain of a puberty that doesn't fit with their notion of self is a travesty of your duty of care. That you will put many in the situation at risk of suicide because it feels impossible to live in a body that betrays you and does things that force you into a gender that doesn't fit. That it is possible to delay puberty safely and has been done for nearly 40 years is a medical miracle. that you would deny this for ideological reasons to a small group of people who need this to get through and to grow up to be people like me. I am one of those who made it through the hellscape and would not want anyone to have to do that when there is a safe medical alternative. Please reconsider your decision and reverse the ban. Yours, Dr. J. Harrison. Now, I sent that off to Wes Streeting. I have received no reply. Probably if I send it off again and basically add, I don't know, I think I need to re-add my address or something at the bottom. He will possibly write a reply, but I've received no reply. I sent it off to my MP, who is a Labour MP, the same party that Wes Streeting belongs to. I'm not going to say a lot about my MP, because if I do so, it could be considered libelous, because I'm not I'm fairly sure that all of the things about him are quite public. He's not a good person. But he is my local MP, so I wrote to him and I got a form letter back saying, thank you very much, but we've considered all of the medical evidence because of the CAS report, and therefore we're going to throw trans kids on the fire of ideology. And I just haven't had the energy to write back going, no, fuck you, you've got it so fucking wrong. Fuck you so hard. Don't you dare tell me, as a bisexual man who has undergone the pressures of being openly bisexual in this society, that you know better and you think you know that trans kids should suffer closeting and shame and just all of those feelings that you go through. But I don't know what else to do. We can just continue to protest. I totally support all of the young trans kids who are doing die-ins and things like that. They are doing the things that the AIDS activists did in the 80s and 90s, and that made a difference, and we just need to support them. I never want to be seen to pull up a ladder behind me. I never want to be seen to say, hey, I've made it because I went through all this horrible stuff. I don't see why you should have an easier journey. I want the youth of today to have a much easier journey of their life than I did. I don't want kids to go through that length of time feeling absolutely shit about themselves and their body. I don't want people to have to go through puberty that messes up their brains so much, because your body betrays you. Your body does things that you don't want. Your body does things that don't feel congruous with your sense of self. Your body does things that are horrible. And I mean, quite frankly, if I could, like pretty much anyone who's gone through menopause, anyone who says they enjoyed their menopause, I've yet to meet one single person, and I talk to quite a few. I go to a cold water swimming club, which I've spoken about before. Most of the people there have either just been through menopause, are going through menopause, or are perimenopausal. That's a whole group of people of around the same age, different identities, different experiences, different stages of life, are all going through this horrible hormonal betrayal. And it's one of the times where, when I talk to people about what it's like being a trans youth, everyone there can understand it, because they are also going through this moment where your hormones are doing things that make you just feel inconsolably horrible about what's going on with your body. And that means that this group of people who are going through menopause can completely understand what it's like for trans kids. However, in the media discourse and in the social media discourse, the menopause, the people going through menopause and the people who are being forced to go through puberty are set at odds against each other, are told that somehow people aren't seeing the interconnects and the interlinks, and that my disappointment in my body, and then talking to somebody about their experience of their body, and they are saying they felt the same thing when they had a miscarriage, when things happened with their children that was tied back to stress at various points in time during the pregnancy, that they felt that betrayal of their body. And I'm like, oh my God, we have the same experience. We just don't have the same language, and we don't have the space to sit down and talk about what this feels like. That everyone knows what that betrayal of, well, okay, not everyone. There are many people in this world, more than 50%, will feel that, will understand that betrayal of body, will understand what it feels like when you're wanting to do something. I mean, honestly, I'm going to tell you something, well, I was going to say pretty gross, but it's just pretty normal. I suffered incredibly bad perimenopausal bleeding at one point. I would fill a moon cup inside of 2 hours. I would bleed the sort of bleeds that are the ones that make you dreadfully, dreadfully anemic. I would stand up at work and suddenly feel blood streaming down my legs. And I would have to kind of go, excuse me, I just need to rush to the bathroom. And people would make comments about me and my body and why I was always having to run to the bathroom. I could only ever wear black trousers because anything else would end up stained with blood. The black trousers were also stained with blood, but at least you didn't notice it so much. And I would do my best to clean up so that I could at least get home. I would always travel with a spare pair of pants in my bag because I totally needed a spare pair of pants all the time. It was just one of the most horrible periods of my life, but also because I have had polycystic ovaries is also a thing. I had no rhythm. I didn't have a 28-day cycle. I had a fuck knows, you're gonna have it now cycle, which would lead me to just suddenly bleeding with no warning. I would not have any of the premenstrual indicators because my body would just go, yep, you're going to bleed now. And it would just be like this flood of blood coming out. I used to have to sleep on with towels and other things on my bed because I would literally wake up covered down to my knees in blood because I had started to bleed during the night, and the blood was so voluminous, it would just, I would stand up and it would be dripping out of me as I got myself to the bathroom in a shared house, even with a group of lesbians. It was one of the most horrible experiences to go through. That's what it feels like when your body starts to betray you, when you can't trust your body to even signal that this is going on. So anyone who's gone through menopause, or who's going through perimenopause, that sense of betrayal is also what young trans kids are feeling as they enter puberty. That sense of moment of not knowing what's going on, of just feeling deserted by your body. The other thing is, when you're going through it in perimenopause, you've lived in this body for 30, 40 years. You've got a pretty decent sense of how it works, what goes on. You're a little bit more capable of managing all of this. When this happens as a teenager, you've got no fucking clue. Having polycystic ovaries, I never knew when I was going to bleed. Everyone gave me diaries. Everyone used to do this whole, you can't count to 28 and all of this. I literally never knew when I was going to bleed. So I was betrayed by my body from the age of 13. I just grew up understanding that at some point in time I would stand up and there would be blood. I grew up with, I still have a reflective look at the seat behind me as I stand up, because that was sometimes the only way to know how bad the blood was. If it had leaked through my trousers or my skirt or my school uniform onto the seat behind me. It was a ridiculously traumatic thing to go through. And honestly, if any kid doesn't have to go through that, yay. Hoorah. Because if you read the actual medical evidence, puberty blockers, completely safe, completely reversible. God only knows what they were smoking, what crack they were smoking on the Cass review. Well, I do know what crack they were smoking. They were smoking the crack of transphobia. But it's just one of those simplest things of giving trans kids or giving kids who are struggling with puberty in a mental health way and in a physical way the ability to put a little bit of a pause on it, to slow it down, to get themselves together enough to deal with it, just fucking saves lives. Full fucking stop.